We're back to the Neil Haley Show. My guest today is Leslie Omanabegger, the co-founder of Fabulingua. We're going to talk today about gamification in education, especially the gamified education app, Fabulingua. Leslie, how
Hi.
are you? I know it's such an important topic because as we saw with certain game apps that became kind of educational, like Pokemon Go, that was the beginning of what we're about to see with the metaverse and everything when it comes to gamifying education, because really that's what everyone's going to be doing.
Yeah, totally. We here at Fabulingua, we really believe in the convergence of education and gaming as a means to engage kids and transform learning models. To us, engagement has been the critical missing piece for the last several decades. And with game design and technology, we can really change this.
There's no doubt it's something that you're like, wow, this can be the so important part of it. So how does gamification enhance educational experience and language learning?
Well, the main thing about education, about gamification in education, is that gamification really, its main purpose is that it really increases engagement. And engagement is key to any learning. If you're paying attention, if you're engaged, you're much more likely to learn. And in particular, in language learning, which is what we do. In actual fact, there was a famous polyglot called Alfred Mercier, and he was saying, basically, long before gamification became a trendy word, that what we learn with pleasure, we never forget. And that's one of the things when kids are playing games, is that they are in a zone of pleasure. They're having fun. They're enjoying it. And really, we all know that. The things that you have learned with pleasure, you really never forget, which is very different from a situation when things you've learned under duress. We actually want to forget that pretty fast. So it really is like this optimal brain space and brain vibe, for want of a better word, that when you are playing a game, you're having fun. And in actual fact, it was Maria Montessori. And obviously she was talking about physical games, but they're still games. And I think she said, play is the work of the child, right? And she was around 120 years ago, before any digital games came up. And I know that traditionally Montessori is pretty screen light, but the concept of a mobile game where you're engaged, where you're on a journey, you're following a progress, you've got a goal, you're trying to get to that goal. All of those things are key parts of gaming, and super, super constructive in learning and language learning in particular.
What are some key elements of gamification that make it effective in educational settings?
Well, I can talk specifically about the educational setting of language learning. It's been really shown very clearly by research in the space of second language acquisition that one of the most important things in when you're acquiring a second language is that you have a low affective filter in your mind. An affective filter is like an emotional filter. So that you are receiving the input from the world from a perspective of being emotionally neutral, or better yet, emotionally positive about that incoming material. If you're emotionally positive about it, your affective filter is going to be low, which means you're receiving all of that information in. And so one of the key elements of gamification when it comes to language learning is that it lowers that affective filter, which means you're actually receptive to all of that information. The opposite would be when you're in class, you're bored, you're stressed, your teacher's just called on you, she's asked you to stand up and speak in Spanish or French to the class, your affective filter is going up, and therefore you're no longer really hearing or listening. The part of your brain responsible for language learning is no longer receiving all that input because of that affective filter going up. So really one of the key elements of gamification for language learning is that it lowers the affective filter, and therefore you get exposed to that much more comprehensible input, and your learning just goes off the charts. So really gamification is extremely productive for language learning.
How does Fabulingua incorporate gamified elements into its language learning platform?
Yeah, well, in Fabulingua, we're not just incorporating gamified elements like a lot of kind of apps out there do. We're actually a mobile game. So what happens is that there's a journey through the island of Fabulingua You start off in one location. As you complete that, you find enough compasses to unlock the next location. So as you're progressing, you're exploring more. You're going to new locations. You're going from Tutorial Beach to the pond to Fairy Falls and the fantastic forest, and as you're progressing for that, you're really on a journey of learning. But you're also, one of the other things we do is that each time you read a story, you earn keys. As you read harder versions of the story, you earn more keys, gold keys and diamond keys, and you can go into our fabled shop and buy treasure chests with the keys that you've earned. And they've got, card battlers, like a sort of Pokemon style card battler that come out of the treasure chests, and magic stickers for Magic Sticker Book. So there's all of these rewards that you're basically getting from the stories that you're reading, and the mini games that you're playing. So those are sort of some of the gamification elements, although truth be told, it really is a full mobile game. So it's not just little elements of gamification, it's the full mobile game experience. And the one thing that mobile games know how to do is to capture your attention. If you think of the Candy Crushes of the world, what they're amazing at is to harness your attention. And so we're using that capability of mobile games to harness and capture your attention, and then focus it on the most effective way to learn a language. So the results are huge. You're using comprehensible input, which is the most effective way to learn a language, and the high attention and engagement, and you're putting them together that you get from mobile games, you're putting them together to get really extremely effective language learning.
In what ways does Fabulingua balance entertainment and education content within its gamified approach?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of people have this impression that and apps that don't do mobile or gamification well they keep the learning and the gamification quite separate. For us, they're very intertwined, right? The stories are our learning vehicle, but they're also super entertaining and compelling and engaging. And then all of our rewards, like our card battler and our Magic Sticker Book, also have a lot of learning in there. So they are pretty intertwined, which is really the most optimal situation to make sure that the engagement produces learning and the learning is engaging.
Wow, it's so important to have both entertainment and education, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You don't keep them engaged, they're not excited and fun to learn, and you're not getting the learning goals happening. How does the use of gamified elements in Fabulingua encourage active participation and language practice?
So, that is also one of the real benefits of using mobile gaming, is that it's by definition not a passive experience. You're not just sitting there watching TV, just receiving. In a mobile game, you're very actively you're the protagonist of the story of your own journey, right? You're weaving your own narrative. And that is, it's much more engaging when you're participating. And B, you just remember things that you've done better than things that you've simply just seen, right? So it all comes down to mobile games being compelling. And the science of second language acquisition has shown very clearly, in actual fact, Stephen Krashen, who's kind of like the guru of second language acquisition, has said that it may be the case that we actually only truly learn when the input that we're experiencing is not just engaging, it's compelling, right? And so having something that is compelling, that you're compelled to do, the way that kids are compelled to play a mobile game, it really may be one of the most powerful ways to really get effective language learning.
And when you were developing this app, did you look at games too, also other education games, and why kids learn so much better with gaming? What have you seen with that?
Yeah, no, we've looked at a lot of games. In actual fact, every single one of our developers is a game developer. That's their background. They have been developing games since time immemorial. Our head of product used to work at Jam City and AppLovin, and all of our engineers have developed, hosts of games. So that's one of the things that's in the DNA of Fabulingua, is we are game developers. So yeah, we're pretty fluent in that. And then we're combining that with my knowledge of second language acquisition and all my research into it and my patent, and really coming up with something pretty unique.
And we all know if you're going to have kids learn, it's got to be fun. And that's what Fabulingua is. So go to fabulingua.com right now to find out information about Fabulingua, or you can download it at the App Store or Google Play, right?
That's right. Yep.
All right. Appreciate it, Leslie. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.